Morning and happy new year and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is the flow and stepping into the flow. In other words, also releasing resistance. That's sort of the key. But before we get started and dig into the details in this first in my first day with you in this new year of 2023, let's just take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your hands together to feel the tension, the friction, the temperature, the pressure, and when you stop, all the tickling and tingling, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so great to start the new year with you. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning to everybody else who's joining us. It's awesome to have you here with us this morning. And so we're talking today, first of all, happy New Year. And may this be a year of impactful, joyful growth and evolution for all of us on the planet. And let's have it be a wondrous adventure, shall we? So today we're talking about the flow and being in the flow and how to invite that into our lives. And part of it, or perhaps the biggest part of being in the flow, is releasing resistance, releasing the resistance to the way things are. So, for instance, this morning, I was running a little late and then encountered some technical difficulties that made me even later. And rather than panicking, resisting the flow of how things are, I allowed myself to just allow it. And in allowing it, I was able to come up with this topic and get things rolling a minute or two late, but we got here. And I was able to get here without stressing myself and panicking myself and potentially disrupting my ability to be coherent and present for you. So again, it was being willing to go with the flow, to go with the way that life was unfolding. So Gia says, good morning, Mira, Rubin, and everyone here. Happy New Year, dear ones. Wonderful, wonderful to be starting the year with you, Gia. And good evening to you. It's so awesome to start the year together. And Rosalind says, flow versus conceding to, how to discern. Well, I think that's a really good question. Good morning, Dido. Happy New Year. How awesome to start the new year with you as well. Wow. It's a party, everybody. This is such a treat. So, to your question, Rosalind, what's the distinction? How do we discern flow versus conceding to? So I think conceding to might be resignation. And I think there's a distinction about presence versus resignation. Resignation is kind of an interpretation of a situation. And it's not a positive one usually, right? If I'm resigned to how things are, then there's a sense of powerlessness around it, versus flow is kind of a receiving mode, I think. You know, when we allow ourselves to be in the flow, we're allowing ourselves to just receive what the energy is, to be dancing in response to be engaged with the energy. And that's flow. It's like, okay, here's the way that things are going, and I can resist it, and I can say it should be different, or I can allow it to be as it is. And when I'm able to allow something to be as it is without all the commentary around whether it's good or bad, or all the stories, I could have made up all kinds of stories about being late, starting the new year, or whatever, 2 minutes late. I could have made all kinds of stories about it. And I'm present enough to that possibility to recognize that I could have done that, and I elected not to. Like, there's a part of me, that little voice that wants to say, to go, to just go into that whole spiral, no, all the nasty messages. And instead I can choose to cultivate the conversation that allows for it to be perfect. In fact, it was the fact that I was running a little late and had these technical challenges and whatever that that brought up the topic of the flow, is to just flow with it. Because the more we resist, or the more we have that internalized judgment conversation about things, the more we exacerbate the problem, right? Because I could have gotten myself all flustered. And when we're flustered, we have all kinds of other challenges that result because we're not paying attention, because we're not being present. And so allowing ourselves, if we give ourselves one gift in this new year, one of the greatest gifts that we could give ourselves and others is to allow ourselves to be with what's present, to be able to be present to what's present, in order that we can be responsive rather than reactive. And to recognize that when those conversations arise, like, I should have done this, I should have done that, what attributing negative meanings to things, all of those conversations, that we actually have a choice about those conversations as to whether we're actually going to enable ourselves to indulge them or not. And what in those moments before we get into a full tilt spiral, to remind ourselves that we have the opportunity to choose, that's a profound gift. It's a gift to us because it allows us to have a more pleasant conversation or experience, but it's also a gift to those around us because we're not creating further chaos, right? Through our reactivity, we're not embellishing on the issue. It is what it is. It is what it is. And there are gifts in that. So, for example, just this morning, to allow myself to be present to, okay, I was having these challenges. It was making me in a place where I was going to be late. And it was out of that challenge that came the gift of the conversation around flow. So, that was a very immediate kind of response or result. But I think that that is available to us pretty much all the time. So it creates possibility, and to open a new year with that opportunity for possibility is a profound gift. Good morning, Elaine. How wonderful to have you here joining us for our first day together in the new year. Happy New Year. Elaine says, Happy New Year's, beautiful beings. So it's wonderful to have you joining us. So I think when we can start the new year and hopefully remember to embrace each moment as a new opportunity. So we can be having challenges, we can have opportunities. Good morning, Jenny. I have no idea what's up with Facebook, but I'm really delighted that you were persistent enough to find us on YouTube. So welcome, Happy New Year. And that resolve, use that resolve as an opportunity to recognize that you can overcome all kinds of challenges. And you just sort of took on the challenge and turned it into an opportunity. You found a new way, and let that signal you into the new year with strength and courage to know that you can overcome challenges. So we are meaning making machines. And so Rosalind says, so the difference is making the choice, being responsive rather than reactive. That makes sense. Yeah. So the difference between flow versus conceding and is being responsive rather than reactive. When we're able to be present, ideally without judgment, or at least when we are judging, to recognize that judgment, to give ourselves an opportunity to step back and recognize that we're judging, then we can make another choice. And it is all about choice. We always have choice. When we're talking about quality of life, so much of the quality of our lives resides in the choices that we make. And those choices are very often, or maybe most often, choices of being. So are we going to be in the space of challenge, overwhelm, helplessness, hopelessness, and or can we choose to be in the space of opportunity and possibility? And I'd like to keep I'm going to keep our conversation on track and just talk to comments that relate to our conversation. So let's be looking at, what does it mean to be in flow. So part of it is acknowledging our possibilities, acknowledging our the opportunities that circumstances present, and recognize that opportunity is a judgment, right? When we talk about opportunity, we're talking about a judgment call. And so when we talk about difficulty or hardship, we're talking about a judgment call. So within every circumstance, there is opportunity and there is challenge. Oh, Jenny says, would it mean to be content? Oh, that's such a good question, Jenny, because I think that you might have actually put your finger on something that is a result, is maybe a peace, a peacefulness that allows us to dance with circumstance, that to be content is maybe to be in a peacefulness. I think that when we can allow ourselves to be responsive, to be aware, it doesn't mean that we would necessarily always be content. There could be something that's really disruptive and we're churned up about it, and we can still find a space within ourselves to be responsive. So in that moment, it might not be being content as much as it would be being present, to be able to bring ourselves into a space of alignment. And I think we can be in a space of alignment and presence without necessarily being content. But I believe that this willingness and to allow ourselves to move into the flow will certainly breed greater contentment, greater peacefulness. And, as I say the word contentment, part of my conditioning is thinking of the word complacency. And I don't think they're the same. Complacency means like a willingness to just, it implies to me anyway, a laziness, like a lack of engagement. Whereas I think contentment or presence certainly is a more active engagement. So Jenny says, learning how to meet unmet needs. Well, beautiful question, Jenny. So when we talk about unmet needs, that's also an assessment and a value judgment, right? And so let's say we have like the determination that needs are unmet is a determination. And let's say we experience a need for love. And okay, so Jenny says content is a blissful happiness. So I don't know that we're talking about being content necessarily, because I don't know that being present necessarily generates a blissful happiness. It might be more of a, oh, Jenny says peaceful happiness. Peacefulness anyway, right? And in any case, talking about unmet needs, if we identify that we have needs that are unmet, that can give us an opportunity to create ways to meet those needs. So if we're having a greater need for love and connection, we can seek means to create those opportunities for love and connection. And we can also generate those opportunities or generate that experience within ourselves, to be finding a greater appreciation and love for ourselves within ourselves. And so I think, again, this notion of flow can bring us into a deeper connection with ourselves and our intentions, and also the connection with ourselves and our intentions can bring us into a greater sense of flow. The bottom line that I see as I'm thinking about it regarding flow is lack of resistance, releasing resistance. And in the process of releasing resistance, what we're doing is we're creating an experience of greater alignment, a greater sense of presence. So Rosalind says, lacking versus letting go. Let go of the search, but it doesn't mean we have to let go of the desire. So maybe, words can be so hairy here, right? We can still, I think desire is an interesting word, because we can have a desire for something, an intention towards something, without having the longing, the yearning. We can have a vision of something without its lack consuming us, so that if we can presence ourselves to bringing that thing into manifestation by appreciating it, by reveling in it and enjoying it and experiencing the feelings that we'll experience, that we believe the having of that thing will create for us. That's very different than I want it, meaning it's not here, and I want it now. And then being more present to the lack of the thing that it is we're desiring. So it gets a little tricky, right? But when we can presence ourselves to intention and presence ourselves to the emotions of that we believe the having of the thing or circumstance will create, then we have a much richer sense of presence to the appreciation, the gratitude, the energy, and it's a life affirming energy rather than something that depletes us or affirms our lack. And so that's the slippery slope, maybe, of creating those distinctions. So Rosalind says, if a river flows to an ocean, not bound by a destination or outcome, right? So there's a direction of that river. And I believe that it is very much our intentions that influence that direction, so that when we have a clear intention, the universe conspires to support it. Jenny says, meeting new people automatically creates vulnerability, fearing rejection. For me, that is. So Jenny, I invite you to transform that to meeting new people provides new opportunity for connection, potentially. And that can radically shift your experience of meeting new people. If you're afraid when you meet new people, then, there's a guardedness. If you can be open and receptive without putting yourself in danger, I believe. We get to pay attention to the knowing that we have also. So Gia says, I think desires will remain in one or the other form, not resisting them or trying to be Zen-like. Imaginary state of mind is what creates resistance, or running behind them, longing for them is all what invites suffering. But letting it be is, and letting everything be is what I think is being in flow. I beautifully said, Gia. I think we don't want to be in denial about our desires. That's also creating additional resistance, to your point. And really allowing what is to be is being in the flow. And the more we can self-correct to bring ourselves back, then that's how we can be in flow. And Rosalind says, as if self is a state you have to get to. Right, right. The way to get to self is to be like relinquishing all this other stuff that we lay over it, right? It's funny how we divert ourselves. Good morning, Robin. So good to have you here with us. Happy New Year. And Jenny says, I like that. I must write that down. Self is who we are, and we often layer over it and resist our expression of it. And what we get to do is come back home. And speaking of which, I have to run. Now I'm still late. And I just want to say thank you for starting the new year off with me. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. It is such a privilege and pleasure to be with you. Happy New Year.